Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Falato. We're doing a live show, our first live show of the draft season, our first live show really since the end of the 2024 season. The draft is almost here. We're less than 2 weeks away. We're 10 days away from the draft, or less if you consider today a day. That's over already. 8 days, actually. And so we're coming to you with a live here. I'm gonna let people get in. That's kind of why I'm filibustering. I always do filibuster at the beginning of these as I let people get in and join us for the show. But I think our plan, Nick, is to also do a live next week before the draft and then possibly some stuff during the draft, depending on our schedules. But this is the first of them. We're going to talk draft. We're going to talk where we're at with a lot of things. We are going to get your questions. That's the key. So for a reminder, for those who haven't joined us for one of these before, if you want to talk draft with us and ask your questions, send in a super chat question and we will answer your questions for this show. So that's how we do it. And then talk amongst yourselves in the chat. And I don't know what else we got, Nick. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Watched a little bit of Tyler Shuck, have some Jalen Milroe that I just got through. Fell in love with Tyler Booker. I think that's a cool conversational piece that we can use to start this is if Tyler Booker were to be available at pick 34, it's a big if, right? For a large man. Would that be something that the Giants should entertain? I mean, I think solidifying the offensive line is something we have aspired to do as New York Giant fans and the New York Giants in general for quite some time now. And getting Tyler Booker to play right guard, even though I know he's mostly a left guard, but he did play right guard during his freshman season. That can allow GVR, Greg Van Roten, to possibly play center if the John Michael Schmitz experience fails, which we all hope it does not. And I know that is putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I kind of wanted to start this discussion with Tyler Booker since his tape is so fresh in my mind, because I know you're also a fan as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tyler Booker, and he's someone who was originally projected to maybe go in the top, I would say 20, and now there's discussion of him dropping because of his poor testing at the combine. Really bad RAS score, really bad 40, really bad 10-yard split. Questions about his athleticism. Some people suggesting, look, you can't take this guy if you're in a wide zone scheme. Look, you can't take this guy if you're in any kind of scheme that requires athleticism at the offensive line position. I'm not sure I see what they see, at least not on the tape that I've watched and the cutups I've watched. What I see is somebody whose anchor is really, really strong in pass protection. I also see someone who communicates in pass protection and does a really good job. And that's no surprise if you read The Beast from Dane Brugler or really listened to Daniel Jeremiah. He's the best leader, I would say, on that Alabama offense and someone who has a really, really high football IQ.
The guy has beaches in his base, bro. You know how we say you got sand in your ass? That dude's got like Wildwood Beach in his ass because the guy doesn't get pushed around or bullied whatsoever. I've seen him exhaust powerful rushing defensive linemen where they would get low, their hips would be low, they would explode low to high, and Tyler Booker would just sit back. He can re-anchor himself, surprisingly flexible for somebody of his build, right? Like, I'm not saying he's the most flexible dude in the world, but surprisingly flexible for someone of his build, just exhausts these defensive linemen. And that's something, I mean, geez, we've been wanting to see that for quite some time from our interior offensive line. And he certainly offers that.
Yeah. And it's somebody who, with what we saw that we really, I guess, I don't want to say overlooked, Nick, you and I, but just maybe not necessarily focused on was Evan Neal and how he bended, right? Like he didn't really sink his hips. There was a lot of bend at the waist. But with a player like Booker, you'll watch him in pass protection. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago on Twitter. I was like, he's like the opposite of watching Evan, reminding me of Evan Neal. I'm watching two Alabama players that comes to mind. The way he sinks his hips for somebody of that size, it's really phenomenal. And yes, I know the testing was bad, and I personally do like him more in the pass game than the run game as an offensive lineman. And while the testing was not great from an athleticism standpoint, a speed standpoint, Nick, there were other aspects of the testing that were really good. His hand size, 85th percentile, his wingspan, 85th percentile, or I think it was 84th percentile, and his arm length, or I think the wingspan was 93rd percentile and the arm length was 84th percentile. There you go. You got it right up there. Hand size, arm length, and wingspan, all elite And obviously, you see the weight. He's a big dude.
Hand
That
top is 96%. I was going to say it can't be 85th.
96%. Yeah,
11-inch hands is massive,
it's
dude.
massive. That's big for punchback, big for reach, big for everything you want from if he plays bigger than his size because of his length and because of his hand size. I really think he is the option. Like we've been looking for this player on the Giants offense line for a while, somebody with this kind of power and pop and just overall size on the interior. And he's not necessarily like the guy you're going to like, who was the guy the Saints took a couple years ago in round 1, who we didn't like, who had the highlights of him like throwing guys on the ground.
Oh, that's Trevor Penning.
Trevor Penning. He wasn't like, we didn't like him. He's not like the guy who jumps, has the 1 or 2 clips that circle around. He's not that kind of offensive lineman, but he is really powerful and specifically in pass protection. So he's been a guy for me that I've considered like overall top 20, top 25 prospects. So if they get him at 34, it's a pick I would like. Now I'll say this, Nick, do you get the impression that Joe Schoen and this regime have, with their jobs on the line, have any interest in taking a player who might not play a lot? Because if you draft Booker, he may not play a lot. You could be Joe Schoen right now, look at your offensive line and say, I kind of got my guys. If I draft someone with one of my premium picks, 3 or 34, he may not play this year for me, and my job's on the line. That's what worries me.
That worries me as well because you want to construct a team for the now, but also for the future. But if Tyler Booker is the pick for the New York Giants at 34, he's starting at right guard. Like he's going to start, and GVR will be the swing interior offensive lineman. Tyler Booker, again, man, like I would love to add a player like this. I think he'd be a staple on the Giants offensive line, add a level of stability. And yes, is he the most ideal for outside zone? No, not necessarily, but he can function and he can run those concepts. He's not going to be a liability, I don't think. And just the strength, I can just picture him in duo, picture him in inside zone where his range isn't going to be as important. But I saw him, dude, block in space, kick out, pin, pull around other blocks, and he was moving relatively well. He just did not test like it, right? Like you see a 2 percentile 10-yard split and a 25th percentile 40-yard dash. It's pretty rough numbers right there. But one of the reasons why this player is going to be available at pick 34 is because of these numbers. So I want to take that into account as well, because if it wasn't for this and he tested just like an average ho-hum offensive lineman, this guy's more than likely going top 20.
Yeah, agreed. And you could look at the aspects of his game. Like, for example, if you listen to anyone talk about him that's on that Alabama football team, and I mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again, he's one of the most highly respected players on that team, right? Like the total guy you want in your locker room, the smart, tough, dependable, high IQ guy. Giants kind of need that right now. Like one NFL scout said, and this is, I'm using Dane Brugler's piece for this. He keeps everyone accountable in that locker room. After the Vandy loss, Book was the guy who got everyone back on track that next week in practice. And he was a team captain as well. So just think the Giants offense line needs that kind of player. They have one in Andrew Thomas, but why not add another?
Yeah, he's also 21 years old. No, I see. Right. I think this is a little different than Andrew Thomas, and this is not me slighting Andrew.
Oh, they're
Thomas.
Different players for sure.
Yeah. Well, they're different players for sure. But Andrew like Tyler Booker has a quote, and it's one of the best quotes I've ever heard from an offensive lineman, where he says, "I want to make defensive players not love football." Like that's and that translates to his play, meaning he wants to kick people's asses so freaking hard that they want to quit their jobs. They do not want to play football. And I know it's a lot of fodder pre-draft. It's cool to like talk about, but it does translate to the film as well. To me, he has a little bit more of a mean streak than an Andrew Thomas does, right? And that's not to say Andrew Thomas doesn't have a mean streak, but when I watch Booker takes guys and he buries them into the ground and he drives his feet while they're in the ground. Like that's the similarities between him and Trevor Penning, who was an offensive tackle, but there's no similarities. There's no other similarities, but he has that finisher mentality. One of the reasons why Trevor Penning was drafted so high by the New Orleans Saints was because he had that mentality and because he acted that way at the Senior Bowl, and everyone was talking about it throughout that entire offseason. And this guy has that as well, but he's also a good football player, and that's more important to me than just possessing that one trait.
And he also doesn't get fooled by stunts and games up front. He's communicating with his offensive line. He understands where to go. In those one-on-ones, it's really just, that's where I loved him most. In those one-on-ones, watching him sink his hips and pass, bro. He's a guy who I think is both, I would say, Nick, my guy for us. I think we both have him ranked higher than the consensus has been, with the assumption that you can get him in round 2. I think, Cy, we had him on the podcast last week, Nick, and he kind of compared him a little bit to Osiris Torrance, the offensive lineman out of Florida who was drafted by Buffalo. I actually like Booker better from my memory of Torrance. Torrance is maybe a bigger player, but I think Booker plays more controlled. And that's something I really like about him, in addition to all the off-field stuff. So this is definitely a player that Nick and I would be happy to take at 34, especially if all those guys we like at DT, like Grant and Harmon, are already off the board. and you're looking at maybe an edge or somebody like Booker, I'm okay. I'm not looking to just fill every hole for 2025 and make sure that our team is as good as it can possibly be. I'm looking to get the best players on the board, and I'm looking toward the future.
And I think longevity at the offensive line is pivotal to that, right?
Right.
Because you look at this offensive line, John Michael Schmitz, we all hope he works out. But if he doesn't, there's a massive hole right there at center. You have Andrew Thomas. We're hoping Andrew Thomas can stay healthy. I'm still confident that Andrew Thomas is going to be Andrew Thomas. So I'm leaving left tackle alone. But let's look across the offensive line. Other than that, you have Runyon for another, 2 years under contract. And then you have GVR starting at right guard. Evan Neal, you're going to try to cross train. I mean, that's a situation that you can't put all your eggs in that basket. And then at right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor is going to get paid next offseason, man. That guy's going to get paid next offseason. And I'm not sure it's going to be the New York Giants who's paying him. So you need to still replenish this offensive line so we don't end up in that same situation that we've been in, this mire over the last, 5 years or so, where this offensive line has just been unstable. Last year, it took a big step in pass protection, but it still leaves some to be desired in run blocking. And I think Booker unifies both of those. So those are the types of players I want to look for and I want to draft.
And one thing Nick and I are going to do this week and next week as we get toward the draft, we're going to take a deep look into the players that Giants have brought in for their top 30 visits. And why are we going to do that? Because, and we'll have likely 2 episodes dedicated. One that focuses maybe on the quarterbacks and say the running backs, and then one that focuses on the rest of the players. Why are we doing this? Well, here's why we're doing this. We're doing this because over this tenure with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, these top 30 visits have been really telling as far as what the Giants are going to do in the draft. The Giants selected 3 players who had a top 30 visit in their first year in 2022. 4 players in 2023 and another 3 players in 2024. That's 3 draft classes and 10 players that were selected out of just 3 draft classes from these top 30 visits. So it's something we're going to keep our eyes on. And I'm going to give you a list of some players so far that the Giants have in for a top 30 visit, just to give you an idea. But we're going to do a full episode on this, breaking down our thoughts on each player. Players that may be in consideration for that 3rd pick overall that they visited with reported top 30. Now, there's going to be some that are unreported, some that we won't know about that hopefully by next week we'll get to. But Abdul Carter and Shedeur Sanders, players as possibility for pick 34. Running back Omarion Hampton, we'll talk about him. Offensive lineman Donovan Jackson, who could be a pick at 34. We'll talk about him, Nick. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback. Darius Alexander, defensive tackle from Toledo that Nick and I have discussed a little. We'll talk more about. Maybe for day 3, but also possibly for 34. Quinshawn Jenkins, the running back out of Ohio State. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. A lot of big name running backs. Alfred Collins, a favorite of mine, a D tackle out of Texas. Elijah Arroyo. That's somebody who would be a surprise, I think, Nick, but somebody, the tight end out of Miami. Marcus Mbow, the offensive lineman, I think out of Purdue, he could be a really, really interesting player. I don't know if he's going to play the position he played at college, but I like him. Savion Williams, the wide receiver, TCU, Cordell Patterson type, as John Schmelk described him as. Cam Scatterbo, probably my 2nd favorite value at running back in this entire class behind RJ Harvey. And then some day 3 guys they've looked at. Kyle McCord was a top 30 visit. Tyler Shuck. Now, those could be day 2 picks, by the way, but right now, consensus board. Ollie Gordon, the running back out of Oklahoma State, who not a huge fan of, if I'm going to be honest, but I'm trying to get on board with Nick, and I'm trying to watch some tape of him and see what I like about him. Joshua Farmer, the interior defensive lineman the Giants brought in, probably one of the more intriguing prospects. I think a lot of people just don't know how to assess him with the upside he has, given that he's a Planet Theory guy. Jalen Reed, the safety, Colin Oliver, the linebacker, and Corey Black, the corner. Those are the reported ones so far. Pat Leonard, Nick, reported a private workout with Jackson Dart as well. I want to throw that in. And we'll get to more of them as they go because, there will be more reports that kind of scatter in. But I wanted to give an idea of some of those top 30 guys, and then Nick and I will do a full episode later.
Yeah, we're going to do a full episode on it, so I don't want to dive too deep into it. But holy shit, there's a lot of running backs there, Dan. A lot of running backs that I think if you want to get them, you're going to have to spend the 34th overall pick on them if the Giants don't.
Interesting.
Right? Like, some of those could fall to 65, like maybe Scatterbo, maybe Caleb Johnson. Omarion Hampton, I doubt he falls.
Definitely not Hampton.
Yeah, definitely not Hampton, right? So it's telling that the Giants are looking to upgrade that running back position, and I can understand why. I like Devin Singletary. I think they need a different type of rusher than Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy Jr. And finding maybe that alpha back from this draft class, and then Tyrone Tracy Jr. can be a 1B. I think he's much better than just a 2, but a good 1B and an RBBC. That could be the path that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are looking to achieve if they do actually pursue running back in the first 3 or 4 picks of this one.
Yeah, and Singletary is in the second year of his final year of his deal, so they
Yeah.
may be looking toward the future as well on that front. And let's be honest, this running back class is absolutely stacked. It's the deepest I've ever studied. There is going to be value after value starting on day 3, which is what Cy talked about, and I agree with him on. I kind of prefer they pass on running back until day 3 because I think you're going to have a chance at Scatterboo in day 3. He's too small to go any earlier. I think you're going to have a chance at Ollie Gordon, a guy they visited with. I don't really like, but he'll be
I
there.
like Scatterboo though, dude.
I love Scatterboo.
Yeah.
He's my second favorite value in the whole class behind Harvey. They brought in, I believe, did they bring in? I'm not sure they brought this player in because I didn't see this on the reported list, but the running back out of Auburn, I really like. I'm blanking on his name. Big size speed freak. Trying to remember his name
Talk
now.
about Hunter.
Not Hunter.
The other one.
No, let me try to remember this guy's name. I have it in my notes. I can pull up my notes because I was just yes, Jarquez Hunter, the running back at Hunter. I don't know why I said no to that. 4.4 speed guy, 157 yard 10-yard split. I didn't love, but 300-pound bench press, 570-pound squat, and 575-pound deadlift.
Damn, dude.
Just an absolute maniac. Plus, he had an 11.04 second 100-yard meter as a senior in high school. So just that size speed freak. Maybe right now that the production hasn't always been there at times, but I mean, he ranked number 2 in the FBS with 36.6% of his runs resulted in a first down or touchdown. I love that stat for him. Just a player.
Have you seen Ja'Cory Cross-Get Merritt yet?
I have not seen, but this is a player Jacob Gibbs loves, and we're gonna actually have Jacob Gibbs on the podcast. I've seen. I gotta be honest with you, Nick. We talked about like how much film David Sy has watched, and some of the other. Who do we have on before Sy? I'm blanking now.
James Foster.
James Foster. I would say no one's watched more tape on this running back class than Jacob Gibbs. Like he is just grinding through this. So he has thoughts on a lot of running backs, but that's like one of his big sleepers. I haven't watched him at all yet.
Yeah, no, he's a lot of fun. Now he missed basically the entire 2024 season because of eligibility reasons. But if you go back to his 2023 tape at New Mexico, and then prior to that, he was at Alabama State, so it's a small school. You can see why people are so intrigued. So once we get Jacob Gibbs in here, we're going to talk a lot about him, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about him and a bunch of other backs, receivers, and tight ends. That's what we're going to do. I told him our focus is going to be day 2 and day 3, guys, just because the Giants are unlikely to go any of those positions on day 1, we hope, at least. Can you imagine if they randomly took Ashton Genty at number 3 overall? That would be the most epic failure and blow up coming my way. But yeah, man, I'm happy they're looking into running backs. This is the depth of the class. Running backs, D tackles, got to come out of this draft with at least one of each, in my opinion.
I agree. I want to get to this first super chat from a longtime listener, David Goodman. David, thank you so much. And we talked a little bit about Booker, so we're going to talk about his teammate here. And David says, I was convinced you couldn't fix accuracy, and that's why I was down on Josh Allen back in 2018. Now, I would bet on traits and do what it takes to get Jalen Milroe. So with that said, Dan, what do you have to say about David's assessment of this? And do you think there is a path where Jalen Milroe can fix himself a la Josh Allen? And if we don't forget who helped fix Josh Allen, it was Brian Daboll, the head coach of the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, Nick, I actually know that you just recently watched some Milroe, so I want to let you start here, and then I'll jump in after.
Yeah, no, I like Jalen Milroe. There were a lot of frustrating misses, though. If we're just going to focus on his accuracy, there were a lot of high passes. There was a lot of low passes, and it spanned basically every range of the field when it came to Jalen Milroe. It did seem like his feet were never aligned with his eyes or his body, his shoulders, and his hips. Like it would. The word I think I used in my scouting report was it's incongruent. Like those aspects of your game need to be aligned to maximize your ability to deliver the ball accurately. And they just weren't with Jalen Milroe. And that's what led to a lot of these frustrating misses. The game against Oklahoma was really rough. Like Brent Venables was just messing with him. And you could tell Alabama's play calling had no faith in Jalen Milroe. So 2024 was a significant step down. His 2023 tape is a little bit better. I only watched, I think, the Georgia game from 2023, but just generally speaking, you look at the stats and I've heard a lot of people talk about his 2023 tape in a much higher esteem. Still, I look at Jalen Milroe. If I even remove the accuracy concerns and I just focus on what this dude can do as a rusher, I am incredibly intrigued. And then I see those flashes. The flashes of anticipation, the flashes of touch and pacing on the football. It's not nearly consistent enough for me to be like, oh man, I want this guy. But if there is at least a flash, I know that it's in him. And can Brian Daboll, somebody who helped fix Josh Allen, bring that out of Jalen Milroe? So when I think of Milroe, This is a guy who was raised in a military family, an austere upbringing. He's very disciplined. They rave about his work ethic. All of those intangibles involved, one could posit that, hey, maybe with elite coaching, you can be able to fix a lot of these accuracy issues. That's a big leap, though. That's a big leap because, again, I did see a lot of mistakes throughout his tape. But overall, man, I think his arm strength and his arm talent, if dialed in, is tantalizing. And then that doesn't even mention the fact that I think this guy could be the best rushing quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I love that
in due
breakdown.
time, right? Like that's within the realm of possibility for somebody who he measured in at like 217. He looks bigger than that when he's running. He's thick. He's built like a freaking Will linebacker out there, dude.
Built like a Will linebacker running a 4.4 flat.
Yeah, so there's a lot to love about him from that standpoint, but it's a risk, just like Josh Allen was. And it's different because Josh Allen's like 6'5" and like 235, whereas Jalen Milroe is 6'2", 220 maybe, which is still, solid size, but it's not necessarily the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. This entire quarterback class is short, really. If you take out Tyler Shuck, who's 6'5", Milrow 6'2", Cam Ward 6'2", Sanders shorter than 6'2", which I don't like. Jackson Dart 6'2 and a half, 6'3 maybe. This is a short quarterback class, which I do not like at all. Some of those guys are smaller too, Sanders and Ward in the mid to low 200s, I would say. But to answer this question, David, and to kind of address it, I want to start like 30,000 foot view. Yes, I agree with you. I'm a bet on traits guy. You know how I am. You understand. You listen to this show. I want to bet on traits. I want to bet on a coach unlocking those traits and how those traits project. I don't want to bet on somebody who doesn't have those traits or may not have the arm talent or the speed and elusiveness. And when it comes to Jalen Milroe, there are traits to work with outside of just his rushing ability. His arm talent is for real. He had 16 passing touchdowns, which is disappointing in 2024, but he averaged 37 yards per each of his passing touchdowns. You know how insane that stat is? It just goes to show. You watch his tape, and that takes away a lot of the drops, as David Syverson kind of broke down. He had more drops on the vertical throws than any quarterback in this class. He had the best grade from PFF on passes of 40+ yards. You can watch the tape and see what I mean. Unlike other quarterbacks like Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders who have to hitch into their deep throws to kind of layer it over the top, Jalen Milroe was hitting the back foot and throwing those deep throws. And that's how he was making them. Like, pass rush comes in, you have nowhere to step into it. It's a muddy pocket. You have to go off your back foot and use your arm talent. He was making that happen a lot, which is exciting to me. That's a trait to work with. That's something I hope a coach can use versus somebody who needs a clean pocket or a perfect scenario to kind of hitch into a throw. That scares me a little bit more now. That doesn't mean that he's a finished product or anywhere close. Nick kind of broke down all the issues. Some of the stats bore him out too. I mean, he completed just 52.8% of his passes on third down and fourth down in 2024. He had more interceptions and passing touchdowns when he was on the road in 2024. He has small hands, right? He fumbled a lot, 29 times. He created explosives in the passing game, but it's the short throws that scare you, right? Can he get the layups done? But there are moments in the passing game outside of just the vertical game, and I know you saw them too, Nick, where he's hitting a backside dig or he's timing things up on the intermediate level. Even sometimes outside the numbers, you're like, wow, that was a high-level read and high-level throw. It's not consistent, but it's there. And I think that's the type of stuff that you want to work with, but it's impossible to not talk about what he is as a rushing quarterback. He had 20 rushing touchdowns in 2024. 12 of those were 10+ yard rushing touchdowns. That's more than any quarterback ever, according to Dane Brugler. Lamar had 11 in 2016 and 2017 combined. And this is somebody who is scoring rushing touchdowns, but doing it from deep out. He is an electric threat. And we talk about the accuracy issues, Nick, but when Jalen Hurts came out, and even Jalen Hurts right now, right? He still has accuracy issues, right? Like, there are times he misses. Josh Allen has taken a huge leap. There's still times he misses. Drake May misses from an accuracy standpoint. Do those hold you back, those misses, as much as the explosive plays that you generate? I'm not so sure because, I could watch quarterbacks with less accuracy issues and not miss those so completely, but they'll throw it behind a receiver or they'll stop a receiver's momentum. And it's an accurate throw that we term as a drop sometimes or a catch, and then there's no yak, but it doesn't really lead you to anywhere on offense. Maybe 8 yards here, a couple first downs and a punt. I look at the accuracy stuff as less important, but I do look at some of the other things as he has to fix them. He has to become an actual quarterback. But like you talked about, super high IQ, two-time captain. And this is something I think Nate Tight mentioned from talking to people at the Combine, Nick. They were overwhelming in the people he talked to. The best quarterback interview at the combine by far was Jalen Milroe. And that says something to me as well. He was an all academic quarterback last year at Alabama.
Yeah, and the Giants will have good information on Jalen Milroe just because Brian Dable has a lot of ties to the University of Alabama with Nick Saban, so they'll have their insight there. It's just there are aspects of his game that are correctable, but if we're talking about a ceiling type of play and you want to bet on the tools, as we always say, this is the type of quarterback that you want to bet on. I think Tyler Shuck is another quarterback that you'd like to bet on. The fact that he's 26 years old doesn't concern me all that much. His injuries with Tyler Shuck, I think it was 2 broken collarbones and a broken fibula. They all happened in September, which is very unfortunate, but I can't speak. I'm not a freaking doctor. I can't speak on the collarbones. I don't know if it didn't seem to hinder him at all through 2024, right? But I don't know if there's a certain scar tissue or certain aspects with the collarbone that could hold him back if he gets hit. I have no idea. But it's not a torn ACL, and it's not like a rotator cuff, and it's not something like that. Like those injuries are a little bit different than I think ligament and tendon type of injuries that might be able to recrop up. But again, I'm not a freaking doctor. But watching Shuck's tape, I was very interested. Now I watched 4 games of Tyler Shuck, and
we haven't talked about this yet. I was excited to hear your take on.
Let's do it live, right? Let's do it live as they.
Well, we got to save some of it because we're gonna do an episode on the top 30s. But let's hear some. Of course,
basics. No, just baseline. I mean, the guy has arm talent through his ass, bro. It's the arm talent, the accuracy, all of that. It's there, right? And I mean, he's not the most escapable, but he can escape, right? He can do a little bit when he's running. Like there were a few red zone touchdowns I watched where he was off on his own, running to the left, and then he contorts his body, jumps, and like his ability to change arm slots is just crazy.
Notre Dame throw everybody loved.
Just throw. Yeah, the Notre Dame was one of them, and Notre Dame's defense was all over him, right? And his offensive line didn't necessarily do him many favors, but he was still making high-level throws and made it somewhat of a competitive game. So I came away just from raw quarterbacking traits very impressed with Tyler Shuck. And I do wonder if it wasn't just 1 year, if he was 23 instead of 26, and if he didn't have all of those injuries, if he would be discussed in a higher esteem. And again, maybe it's fair that he's not being, but I look at physical traits and he's got some.
Yeah, that's why when we watch the tape, you can see different things. And I implore everybody to watch the tape of these quarterbacks, not just listen to what you heard or just be like, I see him ranked QB2 by most people, so he must be QB2 or he must be QB5 or whatever these things are. Like watch it and evaluate it and try to project what you've seen in the NFL to what you're watching in all regards. And we'll talk more about those players because Tyler Shuck had a top 30 visit with the Giants, Nick, and a private workout. Shedeur Sanders, a top 30 visit and a private workout. Jackson Dart, a top 30 visit, and from what Pat Leonard reports, a private workout that hasn't been reported yet. Same goes for, I said, Sanders, Shuck, Milroe as well. And who was the one you said?
And Dart.
Yeah. So they've really done a lot of work on those guys at quarterback. And they're bringing in Kyle McCord for a private workout as well, I believe. Or that's a top 30. One of the two, I believe, a top 30. So they've really poured assets into this. I'm starting to believe, Nick, that one of those picks, 34-65, will be used at quarterback. Maybe not something we would love, but everybody wants to take a chance and you got to have hope. So you have hope on one of these guys. For me, I'm leaning toward, if that's going to be the case right now, I would lean toward wanting Shuck or Milroe as one of those gambles if we're going to do that gamble on day 2.
I get it. Jay Ferries, thank you so much. Jay Ferries asks, guys, how can the Giants use Kayvon on the field with Carter and Burns, presuming that the Giants draft Abdul Carter from Penn State, the edge rusher? I hate the idea of teams low on talent who replace good developed players with newer, cheaper ones. Should be stacking that talent.
I kind of feel like you are stacking that talent. So maybe I'm confused by this, Jay Ferris. I think they're stacking talent with pass rushers. And, this is probably a question a lot of people asked when the Giants drafted Jason Pierre-Paul or Justin Tuck during their Super Bowl years. Why are you drafting another pass rusher? But then you find a coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo who knows how to use all those pass rushers, whether that be in rotation, whether that be in the NASCAR package. I think in this case with Abdul Carter, you would use him lined up like Penn State did a lot of times over the ball in the A gap or B gap, or sometimes you can have 2 guys over the edge, one guy dropping, whether that be Kayvon or Abdul Carter. We've seen both Kayvon and Abdul Carter look fluid and be able to drop. Same thing goes for Burns, right? So really any of the 3 in that regard. You also can come up with scenarios where you can kick Burns inside. I believe Burns can play some snaps.
I think you can kick Kayvon inside.
Yeah, you can kick Kayvon inside too. Right. Maybe not Abdul, but that's all right. You want him bending the edge. So I don't think this is the same kind of problem that you do. I feel like a good defensive coordinator can figure this out really, really easily. And there's even you can look to the past with Abdul Carter before last year, his first year, kind of like Micah Parsons, who was inexperienced entering the NFL. He was an off-ball linebacker. So you can just line him up as your off-ball linebacker and just have him work there at the beginning. Who knows? Like, this is just not an issue in my mind.
I don't think it's an issue either. I think each of those players can earn plenty of snaps, play 70% of snaps. They can coexist on the field at the same time. 3rd and 6 plus situations, 3rd and 5 plus passing situations on 2nd and 9. Get all 3 of them out there. Abdul Carter doesn't even need to necessarily be the starter week 1, but he's still going to play a shit ton of snaps and possibly be the most impactful player other than maybe Dexter Lawrence.
Right.
Because you have Kayvon. I think this is a good problem. I don't view it as a problem, but a good conundrum or issue to run into, having 3 quality edge rushers, especially when one of them is kind of just like a defensive weapon in the trenches and also as a linebacker. I was watching when I went through Carter's tape. I went through Carter early in the process. I was watching him do just like zone drops. I was like, holy shit, dude. He's freaking fluid, dude. His hips, bro, he can open and close them. He can
play offense. I think if he wanted to, he could play offense because of how fluid he is as like a tight end or H-back player.
I mean, I'm not going to say that, but like he's just a very fluid player overall. So like I have no issue with the Giants selecting him and thinking that Kayvon would get buried. I think Kayvon would still play a significant role in this defense. And also, man, that's a position where you need depth. Giants haven't had depth in that, and we've seen it suck for New York. They could not fit the run at all back in 2022. Even they had a bunch of different body types. It was a different type of defense. But with this specific defense, having him and Burns scream with off the edge with Dexter in the middle is that's an amazing situation to have. And I think it would fit like 4-man rushes, simulated pressures, all of it.
Giants led the NFL in sacks for a decent chunk of last season.
Like 8 weeks or something.
That's not bad when you consider they were trailing in almost every single game without opportunities to rush the passer. I mean, the Minnesota game, would they get like 5 true pass sets against Sam Darnold week 1? If they're lucky in that game, they were up by so much. Minnesota, I feel like that wasn't even the only blowout I remember from the first 8 weeks. So it might've been, I can't remember now. So they would get the potential to be the best pass rushing team in the NFL if they drafted Abdul Carter.
Absolutely. We have some more super chats we can get to, but I'm looking up this one player. I actually don't know him.
Sure.
Yeah, this is anyway, let's go to Tom Ty. Tom, what'd you say, bud? He just says, thanks for all the amazing work you do during draft season. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, Dan's biceps looking great. Keep pumping. Dan, your biceps get a lot of praise.
Too much talk and too much praise on the podcast. Well, not a lot of praise.
What's your workout routine?
I
would imagine one of your wrists would just be a lot bigger than the other, but I could be wrong.
That's funny. I don't have much of a workout routine. I just do, press, push and pull days, and then leg day. But lately with golf season, Nick, I've abandoned the gym because, you can't do a workout a day before playing golf because your game will suffer. And all that matters is playing good golf at this stage of my life when it comes to sports and lifting. So it is what it is. But no, I don't have that. And remember, folks, I'm not pushing up my bicep when this happens. It's me moving the mouse on my computer as I go to different tabs or look for other resources. So just let's make sure everybody knows I'm not this like big weightlifting guy that's like trying to show off his biceps.
All right, we have Mark.
But thank you, Tom, for the donation. I appreciate it.
Yes, Mark B. Thank you so much. Also, Tom, thank you. He says no question, guys. Just appreciate all you do. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you for appreciating us.
All right. Ken Ready. Ken, thank you as always. Says, seems a day 2 quarterback is a certainty. Who's your favorite? So let's lay this out, right? Who are the day 2 quarterbacks? Let's just exclude Shedeur, and we'll exclude obviously Cam Ward, and we'll include Jackson Dart as a day 2 quarterback. Who is your favorite?
We're excluding Dart or including Dart?
We're excluding Dart.
Okay.
Let's say we can get all the quarterbacks. This is an unreal scenario, but all the quarterbacks would be available at 65. Who would you want the Giants to come away with?
Oh, of the ones, not the 3 that you mentioned, right?
Not the 2 that we mentioned. Dart's available.
So it's a call between Milroe and Shuck for me. And I am leaning heavily toward Milroe because of what we discussed earlier. The explosive traits, the arm talent, and the hope that Brian Dable, who's already worked with a player like this, can do it again. And he's got that leadership trait that Jalen Hurts has. He's got a better, at least according to people, higher football IQ, all academic, all American, as well as somebody who blew people's minds away with his combine. You love that, Nick. By the way, you said something earlier that I should have done that on, but I
should. Yeah, you should.
We'll go back and we'll audit and we'll look later. But yeah, and so I think there's traits there to work with. I'm talking like actual traits, real traits, size, speed, explosive arm. It's not that over the top arm, right? That you see the ball kind of come out nice and it's a good stroke, and it's a clean throw more times than Milrow, but it'll kind of go over the top. It's an explosive arm, like we talk about with Tyrod Taylor. That to me matters. You have to have an explosive arm at MetLife Stadium. You can't just go into December and just not have explosive arm. I just don't believe in it. I don't know how it works. Like, is the defense going to just play up? And I just don't get how it works at MetLife Stadium in December and January, or in Green Bay if you're playing in Lambeau in the playoffs, or any of these places.
I'm right there with you. I think both of these players have that explosive arm that you're looking for, though.
Shuck and Milrow.
Yes, both of them, Shuck and Milrow, have that explosive arm, because I'm leaning more towards Shuck than Milrow. I just, again, the arm talent at that 2024 tape, it's
tape's awesome. I get it. I get what you're looking at.
I think I would be pleased with either at 65. I don't think the shot Milrow's going at 65. I think the fact that he was invited to the draft says something. He could be one of those surprise first round picks. Look, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in this draft. I made this point on previous podcasts, but I'll make it again. I'll be redundant. After pick 3, basically, after where the Giants pick, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen.
Sure.
Like, everyone's boards might look really dumb after all this. Like, dumb. It could be like pick 65th overall player going 20th or something, because a lot of the players in this draft who are going to be selected high in the first round, they're similar to players who are going to be selected at like 60.
Right.
Like this is a deeper draft rather than a draft that is chock full of the Malik Neighbors and the Joe Alts like it was last year. Here it's like a big 3, if you want to include Cam Ward in it. And then there's like the Mason Grahams, and there's some good, and then it's just like everybody's around the same. It's like pick your flavor type of draft.
Yeah, I think we could see surprise interior defensive lineman picked early, surprise offensive lineman picked early, a surprise receiver wouldn't shock me to go early than people expect. Jaden Higgins, I could see as a first round pick. No one's seeing edges that people aren't expecting could also go in that range. And it's possible, like you said, because there's not a lot of consensus blue chips, Nick, a player like Omarion Hampton could go earlier than people expect, like round 1.
Absolutely.
So, just to get, because you may get to the point where you're like, I don't really feel that confident in what's left on the board. Let me just take a sure thing here.
Yes. All right. John Kirk. Thank you. John says, if the Giants get Abdul Carter and add a defensive lineman like Williams, Alexander, or Collins, how does the Giants defense rank against the other NFC East defenses? Rank them. Okay. So we have Abdul Carter, right? And let's just say they get Darius Alexander from Toledo, or Alfred Collins from Texas.
Let's say Collins.
Or Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Any of those, you know what? Honestly, any of those 3, it would be a huge upgrade, right? I think Alexander gives you a little bit more juice than the other 2. Yeah. Collins is a little bit more of that run stuffer. Williams has the run stuffing moniker. I think there's a little bit of upside.
There is juice to him.
Yeah, a little bit of upside, but still, all mountains of men. Alexander's a little bit smaller, one gap penetrator, which does fit what Bowen wants to do. So whichever one they add, where does this defense rank? I think arguably it could be first, right? Like, I think
at minimum the second best defense in the NFC. At minimum, if healthy. At minimum.
Yes. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, you can argue maybe the Eagles if DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell raised to be like true, like consistent
second year with Fangio, it could be a really good defense.
And I think the Fangio, that was exactly where I was going. I think the Fangio component of all this, like, just gives so much an advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles, right?
Better linebacker than the Giants have in Bond. They brought him back.
Yeah, that was smart. Yes. But you could talk me into first, which is saying a ton, dude, because this defense stuck last year. But when you just look at like blue chips, right? We talked a lot about blue chips in an episode actually that hasn't dropped yet. But Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, if you want to argue that he's a blue chip, as well as Abdul Carter. You have a good, solid player in Kayvon. You have a good, solid player in Paulson Adebo. You have a good, solid player in Javon Holland.
And all those guys have more upside than solid too.
Exactly. Like, I'm being conservative with my grading right now. You have Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin entering their second season after promising rookie years. And then your linebackers, Bobby Okereke. Yeah, he took a step back, but I wouldn't say he was below average. I'd say he was just average after having an above average season in 2023. And then Micah McFadden, who is a solid player. So that's just your starters, right? And I think there's some depth pieces that the Giants added in Chauncey Golston and players like that who are going to have roles here. Like the Cowboys defense, yeah, they have some studs there. I'm excluding them. Washington's defense, no, I don't think so. I'm sorry. It's really just Philly and the Giants, and I can be talked into the Giants being the number one defense if they add an interior defensive lineman and Abdul Carter.
And I would argue that if they go an interior defensive lineman, Nick, on day 2 and Travis Hunter at pick 3, you could make a case to me that they could be one of the better defenses if Hunter develops into what I think he can early. Now, I think it might take a little time for him to become what I think he can at corner, but I do believe the upside for him at corner is a player who defenses are afraid to throw to his side of the field because he's going to make plays on the football and because he's going to become somebody who can stay in phase the entire route because of his unbelievable and unique movement skills and his competitive nature. So I think he also presents that possibility. It's a different route. I think the faster route would be Carter, but I don't think that should be ruled out either.
And again, we brought this up too, but I think it's a good discussion. Please comment and let us know your guys' opinions as well. Abdul Carter and let's say Darius Alexander gets added. Is this the best pass rush, 4-man pass rush potential in the National Football League? And you can interchange that 4th man by being either Darius Alexander or Kayvon?
It has to be. We already know that Dexter Lawrence is the best. I would call him maybe the second or third best pass rushing, the best overall defensive tackle. I personally think he's the best pass rushing tackle. You just can't block him one-on-one. You're forced to double team him. You've seen the double team rates. And so now you put 2 men on him and somebody's going to get a one-on-one. Multiple players are going to get a one-on-one. Carter, who I think is the best edge bender since Von Miller, legitimately, and that gives him a chance to be one of the best pass rushers right away. Thibodeau, who improved in a lot of ways, pass rush win rate and his pass rush productivity, PFF and ESPN stats. And then, like you talked about, just what else they have there. Brian Burns, who we think, if healthy, can be a real pass rushing threat. Alexander right away on the interior as a pass rusher, man, that would be impressive too. I just think you have so many options there, all coming at you. You can send 4 or 5 guys and drop the rest in coverage and be in a really good spot.
Speaking of Darius Alexander, I don't know if he'd be available at pick 65, the Toledo pass rusher, but Meister Smith, that's what we're going to go to, or is it Mr. Smith? Not sure. Mista. He asks, and thank you, or she, if we take a defensive tackle at 65, who are your targets? So Alexander, I do not think he's going to be available at 65. I don't think Alfred Collins would be available.
I think he will potentially, Collins.
So it might be. Okay. I don't know if, I'm trying to think of a logical cutoff, right? And I think I want to exclude TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander, Alfred Collins, and Tyleik Williams, which would leave Omar Norman Lott, Ty Robinson from Nebraska. Omar Norman Lott is from Tennessee. Josh Farmer
they brought in,
Florida State. I don't think Turner would be available. I'm not sure about Scourton. Deion Walker from Kentucky, if you want to go in that direction. Jordan Phillips from Maryland. So you're looking at those types of players. So just to make this a little bit more difficult, let's do that. And I think the player that I'm going to say out of that group would either be Omar Norman Lott, who is much more of a pass rusher and only had like 86 run defending snaps this last year because he was in that deep platoon in Tennessee, but he's quick, uses his hands relatively well. Somebody who I think would add a different element of pass rusher, just like a much better version of Elijah Chapman to this defensive line group, or Joshua Farmer from Florida State. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on Farmer.
Farmer is somebody who really intrigues me. 35-inch arms and 83rd and 3/8 wingspan, like just absolutely dominant measures with big hands as well. 6'3", 305, but more of kind of, I think, somebody who you're banking on the traits with. I think somebody who is another player who interests me. And Norman Lott is somebody we've talked about on the pod. Like, it's hard to gauge because he didn't play that many snaps, but they're really good snaps. If you look at the metrics for him, he's through the charts, but is that because he had such a small sample size and it's easy to have those elite metrics when you're not playing every snap? Probably, possibly. I mean, I would bet, Nick, that one of those guys, Collins or Sanders, will fall and be like a standout. But let's say for this example, he doesn't. The guy who stands out to me, who I might be interested in, who we didn't mention yet, because I've really liked what I've seen in limited time for him, is Jordan Phillips, the Maryland interior defensive lineman. He's somebody who stood out to me immediately in the process and who I've watched a little bit of, and he'd probably be my guy, him or Farmer, that I might target in that range.
Yeah, Jordan Phillips, that's somebody I got to get to a little bit more tape. Just saw him cross-checking other players, but he's probably going to be available there at 65, 6'2", 313 pounds with, again, 10-inch hands. Love these guys with big hands, but doesn't have the biggest arms, 32-inch arms. But yeah, man, I'm hoping if the Giants do go 65, that an Alfred Collins would fall and a player of that nature, but I wanted to make this exercise a little bit more difficult. So that's what we did. Jake Schnitzer always commenting with his beautiful face and the big B head there. Says, best New York Giants pod, hands down. Keep it up, boys. Thank you so much, Jake. Lacey, thank you so much. Asks, y'all have brought it up in the past how Shane has used double same round picks and traded one. What's the feeling on if Abdul at 3, use KT and a 3rd to trade up and get quarterback defensive tackle in the 2nd? Hate to see KT walk for free.
Yeah, well, I to address that last part, Lacey, and thank you so much for your donation here. I wouldn't necessarily think that it's a guarantee KT will walk for free. I think they're looking at this year as a prove it year for KT, even if they draft Abdul Carter. Now, you could argue that, wow, if they draft Abdul Carter, how can they afford to also re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau with Brian Burns' contract? But you might look at the flip side of it, like, they're not paying quarterback, and they're not going to have to pay quarterback for a little while. And if they draft a quarterback, they're really not going to have to pay quarterback for a while. They're going to have flexibility from a salary cap standpoint. They just don't have a lot of players to sign. So maybe it's spending a lot and allocating a lot at one position. But the Giants' best years came when they had allocated a lot at the pass rush position. And when you have good players in the building, you might not want to let them walk regardless of what position they play. This is something the Giants have had to tackle and explore the possibility of letting guys like Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley walk. They've had to reevaluate whether that is what's more important, to prioritize the position, what you want to play, or if you're a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, young talent in the building, not letting them get out. With that all said, one more thing. If they let KT walk, he could sign a big contract somewhere else based on his age and pedigree, and then he can get a compensatory draft pick like they got for Xavier McKinney back, which is a 3rd-round pick. So essentially, you'd be foregoing that potentially by trading him now. But if you love a quarterback, I can see it being a possibility. I don't think I would want to do it, Nick, for a defensive tackle personally, but I guess if you love a quarterback, you can consider it. I would rather keep Thibodeau on this roster and have depth at a pass rush position and a really good 3rd-down and passing down pass rush package.
I'm right there with you. I don't think I would throw a fit, but I would rather prefer to keep Kayvon Thibodeau and hope that he builds on the small steps that he took forward. Analytically, he took big steps.
Yes.
Tape-wise, like, he got hurt and was on the IR for the middle parts of the season, came back, didn't really do all that much. And then the final 2 games of the year, he blew up, and I think he had 10 pressures in that Colt and Philadelphia Eagles game. Like, I still need to see more consistency from Kayvon Thibodeau, but I do think he's an above average player overall. Jim, thank you so much. Jim says, thoughts on Hunter retirement comments today, sending message to the Browns not to take him. I'm not sure if you saw this, but he essentially, Travis Hunter said, if he's not able to play wide receiver or cornerback, he won't play football. And I don't know the full context of this, but I do like the idea that Jim suggests here. Is this him saying, like, oh man, I don't want to go to the Browns, bro. I get a chance to go to New York. I got to like toil away in Cleveland, really? But again, I don't know. There's probably a lot of behind the scenes, maybe like Hunter's agent is talking with a certain team that he doesn't want to go to, the Cleveland Browns. And that certain team is saying, you're going to play only this position, and he wants a little bit more flexibility in that. Or maybe he just doesn't want to go to that city. Maybe that city is New York. I don't freaking know, but that's a good assumption, I would say.
Yeah, I saw the videos with Garrett Poto, who works for me, used to work with me, for me at CBS Sports when I was on the NFL team. Now I'm over at Fantasy, and I watched the whole thing. It seemed like more joking and jest to me, Nick, than Hunter being like, "I'm now a malcontent, and you better play me a corner and receiver." Like, it just didn't get that feel at all. I think he's making it clear, though, to NFL teams, like, I believe in myself, and he said it in that interview as well. And after he answered, he followed up with this. He's like, I know and I'm confident that I can play both positions at an elite level. So why the hell would I not? Why the hell would I accept anything less than that? And I want him to have that attitude, Nick, because the tape is clear. He can play wide receiver at an elite level, and I think he can eventually play corner at an elite level. I don't think it would be right away because corner is an insanely tough position to play in the NFL, and it's really just shaded toward receivers. And we've seen a lot of these top 10 corners and top 15 corners struggle to start, and it gets worse when you get. I've talked about some last year's spot a lot, Nick, during the pre-draft. It gets worse when you start seeing those picks in the 20s and the 30s at corner. A lot of busts and a lot of people who are struggling in their early time, but it comes to them in year 2 and year 3. And no matter what, with Hunter at corner, Nick, you're going to get those instincts, interceptions, and PBUs.
Yeah.
You're going to get those game-changing plays on the ball.
It's tough though, man. This guy's like 190 pounds.
Yeah.
Soaking wet.
So can he play a lot of both?
Yes.
I don't know.
Think about like Malik. Malik's bigger. I would like a bigger
Sure.
player, like not a super big player, but a bigger player, more thick player. And he got beat up last year. Got beat up a lot.
I'll say this from another sport. I'll pull this from another sport. Andre Agassi, you know him, one of the best tennis players of all time. He was a high ranked guy coming out, a high recruit, and he struggled at the beginning of his career. And he changed everything up by going out to the mountains and running mountains. Seriously. He built up stamina that changed his whole career trajectory. He became the player, Nick, that wouldn't die. He would never give up on a point because he built his stamina. Like, you can use size, and I get that, and maybe that will lead to more injury risk. But if Travis Hunter has like builds an insane stamina and wind, like, he may be able to just play both sides of the ball. Like, I put more on that, I think, than as far as him able to do it. Now, as far as staying healthy, that's a whole nother issue. If that's what you're referencing, I get that.
I mean, yeah, that is what I'm referencing. Okay. I mean, it's the stamina plays into that, but this is a very physical game.
Yeah.
Very physical game.
It's not tennis. Yeah.
And think about it, man. When like you have like a 10 play drive on offense, now it's like, all right, now we got to do special teams, which takes about a minute and a half. Get your ass back out there and play defense now.
Play corner. Yeah. It's tough.
It's tough. And I guarantee in those situations, if the Giants aren't judicious with his snap allocation on offense, every offensive coordinator is going to be like, let's
attack him. Right.
Attack him. He's tired. Go.
But what if he's not tired and he just jumps for an interception? Like,
that would be nice. But this is certainly an issue. Again, it's not one that's going to be like, oh wow, we can't draft this guy because this. But this is an issue that the Giants will have to have internal discussions about in order to avoid a catastrophic mistake that leads to a touchdown one play into an opposing offense's drive.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Marcus Alvarez, thank you. So, how do you feel about Ty Robinson? I have not had the pleasure or the chance.
That Nebraska D tackle, right? Yeah, I have not watched him at all yet.
Yeah, so full transparency. I've been trying to get through a lot of these defensive tackles. I still got to watch him. I got to watch CJ West from Indiana. I got to watch Junior Tofino from Utah. There's a couple guys.
There's a lot of those back end guys I haven't seen much of either.
Yes, but I do appreciate the donation and the question, Marcus. I wish I had a little
that. Well, maybe next week we'll hit on that.
Guy Luganbiel, I hope I nailed that. Thank you so much. Says Abdul Carter, edge, Penn State, 34. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. Will love that start, Guy. Would love it. 65, Tyler Shuck, quarterback, Louisville. Oh, we're killing it. All right, this is where it gets just, if it wasn't unreasonably unrealistic yet, this is where it gets really unrealistic. Elijah Arroyo at 99. Dude, that would be
my boy Tootin. He's tootin'.
Bayshall Tootin at 105. Luke Kandra, Caden Prather, and Nick Martin, the linebacker, who I think the Giants had in for something, right? The kid from Oklahoma State.
Yes.
So yeah, you're nailing wide receiver.
Very nice mock.
Yeah, this would be an amazing mock. Wonder which simulator you used. I would be surprised if Elijah Arroyo is available at 65, let alone 99.
That's 99. Yeah. I don't think Shuck's going to be available at 65.
Yeah. Don't think Grant will be available at 34.
Yeah, I think that those are very unlikely. Tootin has a good chance to be available at 105, though, because he's got fumbling issues and he's a smaller back. And man, is he explosive, dude. I don't love Tootin for us, though. I think he needs to go to like Kyle Shanahan and one of those outside zones.
Yeah, he's an outside zone guy. I mean, like the Giants could use him, but I think if the Giants want to draft a running back, it's going to be something of a different archetype from what they have. And
look at the guys they brought in for top 30s. They all have size.
Yeah. Like again, man, I've said Monungai's name so many times, but like that's the type of player that I would like on day 3. But if you're gonna do it on day 2, like Judkins would be the type of dude. Now I'll say this though, this player fits a similar archetype, I guess you could say. Travion Henderson, Judkins teammate, like he just has that like, oh, there's one cut, I'm gonna hit the cut and I'm gone. Bye bye. Touchdown, New York Giants.
Amazing in pass protection. He's the best route running receiver, running back I've watched in this draft.
I'm so glad you brought up
third best back in this class for me.
His pass protection. I can't remember which game I was watching. I have it in my notes, but I was watching it. I just see him eliminate like 3 passes in a row, a linebacker, and I'm like, holy shit, that must be Judkins because like stupidly,
yeah, you think it's because he's bigger, right?
Because he's bigger, yeah. Just lazily, I was like, oh man, Judkins out here, and then I see the number, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Henderson. That's the guy who runs like wow,
yeah.
So explosive, so fun. That's a player that like is going to be a successful NFL player.
He's also going to go way earlier than people think. He's going to be like, you're going to hear his name on draft day in like round 2 early.
Let's do this. Set the over under for running backs in the top 40.
It's a great question. It's going to be more than people think and more than usual, but 40 is a little rough. I don't know if it'll
top 50.
50.
Because I think 40 to 50, there could be like 3 that go off the board. Like
right away. 40 to 50. I agree with that. I'm going to say over under would be 5.5.
Okay, I had 4.5, but I think 5.5 is probably even safer.
Yeah.
Right?
And Henderson will go. I think Hampton and obviously Hampton and Genty. Caleb Johnson, that depends. Like the right team could probably see a great fit for him. So I think he is a shot to go as well there. Those are the ones I would say are guarantees. After that, it's
you know who Caleb Johnson reminded me of? A little bit of a better version of Kerryon Johnson.
Oh, I remember Kerryon before the injuries. Auburn Kerryon Johnson. I kind of like that a lot. A better version of that.
A better version. Yeah. A more decisive and more vertical. Very like the thing about Caleb that he does so well is the Iowa running back Caleb Johnson is like running into the teeth of the defense and somehow finding a way to come through it unscathed. It's like he is so good with his little micro movement, but he's a high runner and he has those long arms. He kind of runs similarly to a Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah.
So when I was watching this thing, I'm like, oh, dude, this guy reminds me so much of Kerryon. And as I watched more and more, I was like, not really, because he's a little bit just more precise. And I would just say overall, just a better player.
Yeah. But thank you, Guy. I appreciate it. And they listen, if your mock somehow happens, sign me the F up to get Kenneth Grant, Abdul Carter, Tyler Shuck out of this, and Tootin and Arroyo, just weapons on offense. I mean, Tootin's 4.32 and it shows up on tape, and Arroyo is faster than his 40 time. Like he is a loose, you put him in the slot, he's a weapon.
Let's have fun with this. All right. Say the Giants at 34 trade back and they're able to get like 2 more second-round picks, and one of those second-round picks end up being one of these running backs, and it's not Amarian Hampton, it's not Ashton Genty. Okay. Which running back would you want for the Giants?
For the Giants, for me, it's Travion Henderson. It's Henderson. I think he's
that's my point. Like it's tough for me to say no to that, even though I want that bigger physical player. I think Travion Henderson is like an all-star. Like I think this is the type of player who could be a Pro Bowler if he lands in the right spot. I wouldn't mind Judkins either. Like, to be honest, I love these Ohio State
Judkins either. I'm trying to think who else I would. I don't know if I really want Caleb Johnson there.
I don't. It seems like the Giants really like him, and Liddell Betts is the Giants running back coach now, and that's going to factor in somewhat.
I love the fit, but I don't hate it either because he looks damn good on tape. Judkins, I would consider. The kid from this is always hard to think about these players because of the system they play in, but Dylan Sampson from Tennessee has some unreal traits to him, just explosive looking traits. So he would intrigue me. And my guy I really like, as my favorite value, these are my 2 favorite values in the draft. Cam Scatterboy I talked about before, and then RJ Harvey out of UCF. He's older. I think he's 24. He's not going to go in round 1. He's not going to go in round 2. I don't even know if the Giants have to take him at 65. I think he might be on the board for them at 99 or 105. It'll be one of my favorite potential match of them.
He has that. So he's a little bit, I think, smaller than Travion. Well, I think Henderson's a little bit taller, but they're around the same weight. I think Henderson has a little bit more oomph as a runner.
Yes.
But if you need that like home run hitter, I agree. RJ Harvey from UCF.
He has issues in pass protection too.
Yeah, that's why we're talking about him on day 3. But he's that type of guy. You give him the edge, he might be able to just break that safety's angle and go.
Yes.
Damien Martinez is another running back from Miami who I really like. And then we talked about Tootin. Woody Marks from USC. Now the Giants have Tyrone Tracy Jr., so they're more than likely not going to go in this direction. But if you needed a receiving back, somebody who can run routes at every level of the field, Woody Marks is that guy. I went through his. I watched him cross-checking. I watched him cross-checking another player, and I had to just be like, "Oh, who's this? Is he draft eligible? Oh, he is. Oh, it's Woody Marks. He has another name. Woody's is just a nickname." And I was like, "Okay, I got to do my own evaluation on him." That's how much he intrigued me, and I ended up liking him. But I just don't think it really fits with what the Giants need because they have Tyrone Tracy Jr. on roster already.
And I'll tell you what, like, because I look at this roster, Nick. Besides Neighbors, and I would say Slayton, and whatever you want to consider with Hyatt, and I'll throw Tracy in this. I don't care though. I'll always be interested in guys who are explosive players who can add a speed element to the Giants offense. So Trevor Etienne, if he falls, I'll be interested in him at some
That's another
point.
one.
DJ Giddens, if he falls, I'll be interested in him at some point. Brashard Smith, you want to run it back with a former wide receiver converted to running back, and you see something in that, the kid from SMU, I'll be interested if they do any of that. So it's like a pick or poison thing, and they're all like, even Jaden Blue from Texas has some interesting aspects to his game. Or you can go the other route, like some of these players like Taj Brooks, an amazing processing running back. If you believe in that idea of like what's most important is like that David Montgomery. Can you set up your blocks? Can you read your blocks? Can you flow within the offense? So there's really just so many options at running back. A lot of these guys, you said Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, the kid from Arizona. A lot of these players are going to be available at 99, 105, and even potentially 150.
Yeah, I know you didn't love Ollie Gordon's, but if the Giants are looking for
Didn't
that
hate it.
bruising back, right? Somebody who is a high runner, like similar to like a Latavius Murray.
And Tracy's not Tracy runs high too.
Like and so does Caleb Johnson. I mean, we talked about that too.
They like a lot of these high runners.
But he's explosive when he hits the hole, Ollie Gordon. But he's 6'1", 226 pounds, so he has that bigger back to him, right? I haven't watched enough pass protection from him to know if he's good in pass protection, so I'll reserve that judgment. But if they had him in for a visit and they're looking at running backs on day 3, this is a different archetype, and that could be what they're looking for.
Yeah, and he's someone who's interesting. One more thing on him profile, and why I think they might have brought him in. He, in 2023, racked up like 1,700 rushing yards and 330 receiving yards and over 20 touchdowns. An insane number. He was a Big 12 Player of the Year, and then just fell off in 2024 production-wise. So it might be one of those.
But Oklahoma State was
bad. Yeah.
It
might just be something they're like, what's going on here? Why is the tape so different from year 1 to year 2?
I think a lot of it is the offense. But again,
fair.
Victor, thank you so much. Victor says, what schemes can the Giants use to get Carter, KT, and Burns on the field together? Best ways to use Hunter, Neighbors together. You guys are great. Thank you so much, Victor. We talked a little bit about this earlier. I think when it comes to passing situations, the options are endless on how to employ these three. If you want to talk about base personnel, where it's 4 down linemen and there's 3 linebackers, which the Giants don't really use too much, I still think you can include Abdul Carter as one of those linebackers out there, one of those linebackers, if you want to say that, and then have Kayvon, Brian Burns, defensive tackle, whoever the Giants draft, and Dexter Lawrence. And then that could be functional if the Giants want to run a 4-3 defense. And I don't think that's a too outlandish or pie in the sky thinking. I think they can coexist, but you don't even have to put him out there if you don't want to, and you can use him a little bit more and kind of ingratiate him into a rundown role and have KT and Burns be those 2 players. And then Burns gets exhausted. You can just recite, and then at the end of the game, they each play 70% of snaps, like I said, right? Like, so I think we're overthinking it. It's a good thing to think about though. But as Ernie, of course, he said, you can never have too many pass rushers. So I don't view this as an issue. It's just going to be using your defensive personnel to its maximum ability. It's something that we should hope to have be that deep to where you can keep guys fresh deep into the 4th quarter. It's not something we've had for quite a while here in New York. So did you want to touch on that part before we go to a second part of his question?
No, I think you covered that. For the second part, I really think the ideal way to do it is something that you brought up a few podcasts ago, Nick. 3x1 sets, where I actually like Hunter as the isolated one in those 3x1 sets, Neighbors into the slot. I think that's the ideal way. You get Hunter in a one-on-one on the outside, and you better put some damn coverage over the top on him, because he will beat you with his release package off the line of scrimmage. He will beat you. I think he's got a better release package than Neighbors off the line of scrimmage. But then Neighbors in the slot, the damage he did at LSU, the damage he did the rare times the Giants used him in the slot last year, you just have no way to defend this. Like, there's just no, the quarterback has to do his job. Obviously, we know that, like, if you have great receivers and no quarterback, nothing matters. But as long as the quarterback just does his job, there's really no way to defend this.
Yeah, and on 3x1 sets specifically, if you have Hunter on the outside and you put Malik Neighbors in the slot, Russell Wilson can view pre to post snap, and he can give Hunter the free access to Hunter. Or if you want to put Neighbors out there, doesn't really matter. Be like, all right, if the coverage is a certain way, I want you to run this route based on the leverage that this defensive back is playing right now. All right, hike. Russell Wilson catches the ball, checks to see if the coverage is shading or shifting towards that 3 receiver side, checks to see if there is a horizontal cross, if that safety if that palm safety is dropping down and intercepting that cross, all right, I know I have the one-on-one there. I know that one-on-one is running a route right now that is taking advantage of the pre-snap defensive leverage. Let's attack. And then it's just boom, attack until they start adjusting. And then they'll start shifting coverage to be a little bit more balanced. And now you can start going for those 3-man route concepts to the 3-receiver side. Just having the player that is going to force defenses to respect both sides of the field, even though there's only one wide receiver over there, it gives Russell Wilson, who can process these things very quickly, a lot of options. And that's what we're looking for. Options, a processing quarterback, and a quarterback who is going to know what to do based on the defense, how it aligned pre, and what ended up manifesting post.
Right. And you can watch the Colorado tape and see so many examples of Shedeur Sanders kind of like lofting the ball out there into just an area of the field, and it's hanging in the air, and Hunter is just hanging in the air with that ball, adjusting his body and making a play with his hands on the football. Think of all the times that happened when you watch Hunter's tape at Colorado. Then think of all the times that happened with George Pickens and Russell Wilson last year, and Courtland Sutton, Russell Wilson, and players like that in Russell Wilson's career. And that's just going to happen with Travis Hunter and Russell Wilson if he joins the Giants.
All right. AFC 5253. Thank you so much. Says, I've been lockstep with Dan on this. Not bothered if they don't draft a quarterback. Love the idea of Carter and a stud defensive tackle. Add interior offensive lineman, a running back, and or something. I'll be thrilled. You guys are terrific. Press like and comment. Thank you so much. What do you think that was there? Or
receiver.
Or just a receiver. Yeah, I probably should know that. I was looking for the WR. But receiver is that low key, like, hey, maybe the Giants could go in this direction, really just spice up this receiver room. They did bring in a couple blocking wide receivers. I wonder if they thought that was an issue last year.
Interesting. Yeah. And that maybe that's somebody you get in, somebody like Beck or Arroyo who's going to play the slot as like a bigger tight end / receiver to help you with that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, look, it is tough to pill to swallow. Wow, my God, could they possibly go another draft class without selecting quarterback? How can they keep passing on quarterback? But quarterback is, I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's a zero-sum game. Like, you're just not going to find quarterbacks in every class. Some of these guys are just, a lot of these guys are not going to make it. There's a good chance in my mind this could be a 1, maybe even a 0 quarterback class. It could be a 1, hopefully, maybe a 2, though, you don't know, or maybe a 3. It's just like, I don't need to gamble on this position based on my evaluation of these players. If somebody's there at 65, like Shuck or Milrow, I'm happy to do it. At 34, I'll talk myself into it. It's fine. But outside of that, I'm looking at day 3. I'd rather, if I'm going to gamble there. I just don't love this class. And it started as a class that everyone realized and accepted was not a good quarterback class. And I think as time has gone by, people have just convinced themselves on this out of desperation and out of need. And that's how the market goes. Like, Milrow is going to go higher than people expect. Jackson Dart's going to go higher. It just takes one team for either of those two. And then it's just like last year, where if they have a good start to their career, like Nix did, they're going to be like, I can't believe you missed on this. How could you take Neighbors over Bo Nix? It's like, let's let it all play out. Let's see where we're at in 3 years with that decision. Because I know myself, Nick, and I haven't asked you this, but I'll ask you this now. You could trade right now Malik Neighbors for Bo Nix. Are you doing that trade?
Yeah, we talked about this a few podcasts ago, maybe about a month ago. And I said, no, I don't think I am. But
what about Penix?
It's a lot more enticing. I'd be more interested in Nix than Penix.
Okay. So just curious, but for me, yeah, I mean, both I'd have to consider, obviously. I mean, especially Nix. Nix had a full good season, including a playoff game. Penix had what?
I think Nix would work. I mean, I think Penix could work too but like I do like, I like Bo Nix, the idea of Bo Nix with Brian Daboll, which makes me be like, I say no, but I'm I could be blown to the other side of that.
For sure. But we could also be looking in year 2 or year 3 back at these guys, like, how do we ever consider it? Yeah. I think it's still possible, right? We saw regression out of CJ Stroud, who is a much better prospect than those two. We saw fall offs from Daniel Jones and Davis Mills and players who had really good solid rookie seasons, right? It's not a guarantee that these guys keep it up when defense coordinators get film on them and they take away the concepts that they leaned on as rookies that they just kept coming back to over and over again. And with Penix, there's like no tape on him yet. So it's like really the sample size is very small there. So I'd have to consider it, obviously, after the season Knicks had, but right now I would still take Neighbors over both of them personally.
All right, this is the last one. So if you have any more questions, please get the super chats in. And it's Guy again. Guy, thank you so much. He says, it was a PFN mock. Our Giants have had bad luck where we win useless games. Like Schmelk on your pod, best, said Shane has had his bust, but hasn't had consensus mistakes. Maybe luck this draft. and his draft was pretty damn sick. He had Abdul Carter, he had Kenneth Grant, he had Elijah Arroyo, Tyler Shuck.
Quarterback of the future. I mean, he really did it there.
He was tooting all over the place. Yeah, he had it all.
Do you care about the Shuck 25 turning 26 when we got guys like Flacco at 40 playing, Rodgers at 38?
Really. I think it's no, I don't put too much into that. I mean, ideally you want your guy to be 22. I think the being older has helped him though, because he has experience. Yes. He's played at 3 different schools. He didn't really have the opportunity to play at Texas Tech. He was backing up Justin Herbert at Oregon, and then last year at Louisville, he had a damn good season. He looked good. It's 1 year, which is concerning. You definitely added on to the evaluation, but he was making throws that I haven't seen many of these other quarterbacks make.
That's the reality. And I think that's the funny part. Like, watch the tape. You're seeing actual throws that are NFL throws from Tyler Shuck. Are you seeing that from all the other quarterbacks and some of the ballyhooed guys? I don't know, man. As we get through this, there's going to be a lot to discuss, Nick. We can wrap it up here, but if they don't have the traits, like, I don't know what we're banking on here. So when it comes to the quarterbacks, hopefully the Giants will pursue that, and we'll see what happens, because they brought in 2 guys who are vertical throwers, and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. It would be weird if they didn't take someone who they at least believe can be a vertical thrower at the NFL level.
I'm right there with you, bud.
All right. Thanks to everybody tuning in to the Big Blue Banter live show. Hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun for Nick and I, and we maybe didn't even get to everything we wanted to get to, so we'll do one next week as well. Maybe same time, maybe a different day. Well, me and Nick will discuss it based on our work schedules, but thank you so much. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. I forgot to ask this at the beginning of the show. We need you to hit that like button right now if you're still with us. Unfortunately, some of you probably dropped off and maybe didn't hit that like button, but for those still watching, hit the like button. Please subscribe. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. We need to get there before draft night, or I'm going to have a rant. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because people like to see the rants, Nick, so that will give them reason not to. So I don't know what I'll do, but hit the
just got one more question too before we finish the outro from Odell Perry Pittman. Thank you so much. Says, if they don't draft the quarterback in this draft and win 6 games, how do they get their quarterback? They've missed out the last few drafts.
They may not get their quarterback. That's the reality of the NFL. You just can't just snap your fingers and get one. That's kind of the point I've been making about maybe not forcing quarterback in this draft. You can convince yourself on anyone, but it's not as easy as that. And so how do they get their quarterback? A lot of teams are trying to answer that. But if the quarterback class is better, they'll have more opportunities, I think, to get their quarterback.
Thank you, Odell Perry Pittman. And they could always trade assets up. It really just depends on if other teams need.
And a Stafford could come available in a Stafford type could come available in the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to locating a quarterback for sure.
It's very tough. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Keep it locked and loaded. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon with more content.